Yeah, Talal, Ahmad here over in South City at the St. Louis Public Schools Forum. We're here on Lafayette at Lafayette United Methodist Church. We have 5 candidates who are trying to win one of 3 seats available. We're going to go in and see if we can get the perspective of all of them. If not, we'll try to talk to a couple of them and stay tuned. So we're here inside of the forum, and there are 5 candidates, as I said. Their names are William Bill Monroe, Susan Jones, Tony Shilley, Kathy Styler, and Andrew Wimmer. So those are your candidates, and here's a gander at them. So here we go.
We have a whole series of questions here, and what I'm going to do is just randomly sort of mix them up, turn them over, start peeling them out. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to ask the candidates to briefly say hi in a few words. And then we're going to have a really important question, which I'm going to tell everybody up front we're going to have is, how is it that we engage the public in school board elections and get a crowd bigger than this? Because we had notice on this meeting on our sample ballots of last Tuesday's election, and it was on all sorts of lists that went out, emails, and all sorts of online calendars, and this is what we've got. But let's start out first with everybody introducing themselves briefly.
I'm Bill Monroe, and if you really want the truth about getting people out, you got to serve food. I mean, this is coffee. Coffee. Something. This is in the evening, and believe me, people bring their kids or whatever. And it sounds funny, but having been a visitor to the Metro many times, it was horrible when they quit serving food, and they serve good food. So you might want to.
I do appreciate it, but I will tell you on the outset, I'm about $1,000 in debt starting this organization.
But charge them.
But thank you. I guess food, beverages, goodies. Next.
I'm Susan Jones, everyone, and I think that a good idea that we could utilize in order to get more people to the meetings would be to maybe use social networks that people turn over and look at every 2 days when they wake up, so that they can see it in their live feeds, as well as maybe making some phone calls. I know I saw this in my email, and I got a letter in the mail, but perhaps making a group on Facebook. If there isn't one, then maybe one would be a good idea.
I'm Tony Shilley, and not to steal from Ms. Jones, but I completely agree with social networking. I think that's a big part of the future. I feel that these meetings really benefit from having more exposure over the internet.
I'm Kathy Steyer. I don't use social media like they do. They're probably right for a lot of people who are engaged that way. But I'm going to steal more from Bill Monroe about food and phone calls. The school reach phone calls that this district does for some events works when people are interested. When they're not, they're not. But if they know there's food, if they know they can bring their kids, you get more parents out. Older people, it's not as important.
My name is Andrew Wimmer. Well, Marie, that question touches on, I think, a larger one that we're going to talk about a lot tonight. So I think people in the city feel pretty much disenfranchised from the school system right now, with the SAB in charge. And so it's a challenge to get people to think that the elected board, most people don't even know it still exists, much less come out to a meeting to talk about elected boards. So.
Okay, before we go into the card questions, if we could go through all the candidates and let's start next one down and go through. Why is it that you believe people should vote for you for school board? What's the #1 issue that you think you can address, and what in your background or your education is going to make that successful for you. In other words, what's your goal for getting on the school board, and how are you going to get there with what you already have?
Well, I'll start off with the fact that I'm a graduate of the St. Louis Public Schools. I graduated in 2004. I attended Dewey as my elementary school, Rothbunch International Studies for my middle school, and I attended Gateway High School, Gateway Institute of Technology for my high school. When I was going to Gateway, I was a part of the Student Advisory Council Board for the St. Louis Public Schools, which allowed us to have a voice for the students of the St. Louis Public Schools. There was one representative from each school, and what I helped to do and what I did achieve from that student board was to get cell phones passed so that we can bring them to school, and that was specifically for Gateway. That was my issue that we decided to work on because we wanted to bring our cell phones to school, so we kind of, brought up the pros and cons about that. After I graduated from Gateway, I went on to Lincoln University, where I was a nursing major, and then I went on to UMSL, where I was a political science major, which is where I graduated from. While I was at UMSL, I stayed heavily active in my community in the 27th Ward, mentoring students in the Walnut Park area, as well as serving as secretary and going door to door in order to get more people to come out to our board meetings. But while I also served there, I lived in Jeff City for 6 months during session. I was a lobbyist for the UM system, where I was assigned to the Higher Ed Committee and the Budget Committee. I sat on those committees every single day, where I really got the gist of what it was like to make decisions on our monies and how long their process may have taken, and what it is that we need to do as people to get up there and push our legislators to make decisions for us. After I graduated from UMSL, I went on to Webster University to get my master's in management and leadership. There I was still very active in my community, and then I went on to do my second master's now at Webster University in nonprofit. I'm currently an interventionist assistant for the Greater School District, and I work in Nordstrom, and then I'm also working on my second master's. So I think that with my heavy activism in the community, and also mentoring students in the Walnut Park area, which is an area that the St. Louis Public Schools does encapsulate, then I think that I will be a great asset. Not only am I a product of the St. Louis Public Schools, but I've been in those classrooms. I've been in there to see what has worked for the students, what has not worked for the students. I've been able to see what those teachers really needed and what the concerns were. So I think that if we really get into those places and really take my experience as being a student and being an educator right now, then I can really make a difference. As far as my issue that I would really like to see pushed and really done in our St. Louis Public Schools is higher student achievement. And the ways that I think that we can do that is smaller classrooms for our students, having up-to-date materials for all of our students, and also having an atmosphere of learning for our students that's conducive. That means a happy environment. That means that we have good school lunch programs. That means that maybe we should partner off with different entities in St. Louis in order to make our St. Louis Public Schools #1. And I'm excited about it. I'm passionate about our students. I have family in the St. Louis Public Schools that I have a vested interest in, and I want to make sure that they get a better education than what I received when I was in the St. Louis Public Schools. Thank you.
Once again, I'm Tony Shilley. I attended Wilkinson ECC, Malampy, and McKinley CJ as part of the desegregation program. After that, went on to Bishopsburg for high school and went to St. Louis Community College at Forest Park, then UMSL, and then I ended up earning my degree from Rankin Technical College in Electrical Systems Design. I'm currently working on another certificate from Rankin. I, too, am a product, once again, of the public schools, and I've seen how things used to be. I saw how things were. I feel like I got a very good education from the district, and I'd like to see it go back to that. I think my first main goal is I believe that the district must regain full state accreditation and financial stability. And also, once again, agreeing with her, I feel that we need to show more support towards the teachers. That means less paperwork and smaller class sizes. I believe in strong neighborhood schools and greatly support the continuation of successful magnet so once again, I've seen this my whole life, how the public schools are run. I see how they should be run, and I see how they're run now, which is far from it. As previously stated, I'm a product of the schools, and I care deeply for the district because I feel I received a quality education while attending the public schools. I believe at some point during my term, there will be a transition to a democratically elected board, and I'd like to be part of that transition. Thank you.
I'm Kathy Steyer. I had children who graduated from our St. Louis public schools. They went through Waring, Madison, McKinley, and Metro, all magnet schools. I've been an active parent for 15 years. I took the last year off because my last daughter graduated. And I'm getting back involved, trying to help. I've been on PTO, I've been on transportation, discipline committees, you name it, I've been there. I've been on the board of the Parent Assembly, which is a district-wide parent engagement group for 15 years. I'm still affiliated with it, but I'm no longer on the board. I work with a lot of groups. I'm familiar with administration at the school level. I've worked in the libraries. I'm a tax accountant. I know numbers. I want to bring my analytical skills to the board to help look at the budgets, look at what the SAB is doing. We're allowed to monitor. We're supposed to. They don't always cooperate. I want to look at, are we spending our dollars wisely? Are we putting every dollar in the classroom? Because if we don't support the children and the teachers, we cannot move forward. Our children need a good education. I'm in favor of doing anything we can to improve it. Getting accreditation is nice, but the first thing is our kids have to be ready for life. They have to be ready to cope. Testing is part of it. And I want to see the transition from this appointed board to back to the elected board if it happens during this transition. I know a lot of people on the board, in the district, and I can help with that. I'm a mediator. And I hope to serve. And if I don't, I'll still serve in another capacity.
So my wife, Carol, Leslie, and I have lived in the Forest Park Southeast neighborhood for the past 15 years, and our two sons, Carl and David, went all through the St. Louis public schools. Our younger son, Carl, is just about to graduate from Metro, and our older son is now at Truman. Can kind of reiterate what a lot of the other folks at the table have said. What I would really like to see this board do over the course of the next few years is take a much more active role in trying to re-engage the community in conversation. It's back to Marie's first question. For me, I think the most detrimental effect of the SABs having been in control for the last 7 years is that little by little people have just kind of disconnected from the public schools. They don't feel that the schools are really theirs anymore. And as more charter schools have been created, it's driven even a bigger wedge in there. This board actually has a nice opportunity in the next couple of years, sort of free to have conversations with people that we might not otherwise be able to have as freely if the board were in fact in control of the district right now. But as others have said, I'm really hoping and pushing, and I think part of the re-engagement with the community would be to bring more pressure to bear to hand the district back to the control of the elected board and to really begin to get serious about thinking about the future of our schools for the whole city.
You mentioned the word Andrew, and I've known Andrew. I think I know him more about him than any other of the candidates because we spent decades in front of school boards, whether it's the elected board or the special administrative board, trying to impact what goes on in our schools. And when the word service comes to mind, I think of myself. I'm a graduate of Soldan High School. Of course, when I say what year I graduated, some of you weren't born, but I graduated from Soldan in January of '64. And from Soldan, I went into the United States. I volunteered for the Army, and I served my country during the Vietnam War era. And when I came home, I went into another level of service, which was the St. Louis Police Department. And of course, probably one of the reasons that I'm here is because of the experience that I got on the streets of the city of St. Louis. And I've watched the demise of our city. And the reflection, I think back over the recent mayoral contest when we had these gentlemen speaking about what's going on with the city. And they mentioned crime. They kept talking about crime. So I'm going to just focus on that for a moment. And the fact is, I didn't hear any of them speak about education. I heard nobody speak about education. And as a young cop, I spent the majority of my time kicking doors down. I was a narcotics cop. So I kicked quite a few doors down. And some of the things I've seen behind these doors with guns in my hand and guns in other people's hands, what I'm seeing in the streets of the city of St. Louis is much more frightening than what I saw during that time as a police officer. I don't really know exactly what's going to happen as far as the SAB and the elected board. But I do know that you're going to need someone with guts and experience and unafraid to challenge the status quo. And I'm that guy. Our children are suffering. I happen to, I've seen some figures that I recollect about the homeless problem that we have. And we're not really addressing all the problems that our children are having. And I think, I heard Andrew spoke at another forum where we were, and he talked about dismantling what was going on. And I thought about it, I said, man, that's radical. I said, but you know what? We're right there. Being an unaccredited district for so long, we're right there. And thinking about what Andrew said, I think we're going to have to almost approach the education of our children and take it and use a formula, a mathematic formula in the equation. But we got to start with children first. That's the basic of this mathematic formula for taking care of this problem that we have in our schools. We got to go back to children first. And some of you who have been to the old school board meetings, there used to be a huge banner behind the place where they sat. And I think the banner said, children first. But something happened when the SAB took over and they took that banner down. And it kind of makes me think that they don't believe what we believe, and that children are first.
We're going to start going through some questions, and I'm actually going to keep my eye on the clock. So we're going to try and see if we can focus on minute plus sort of answers here. Charter schools. Too many? Not enough? Just right? Good? Bad? Okay? Too complex for a minute answer. Let's start with our third candidate.
All right. As far as charter schools go, it's simple to me. I don't feel that we should have for-profit companies in charge of, that's who starts these charter schools. And they don't do better than the St. Louis public schools. I really see no point for a charter school. And why we keep trying to open more charter schools is beyond me. But the main focus is, I just don't see why we want for-profit companies in charge of the charter schools.
If a charter school can be financially accountable to the people who are paying for it, us, the taxpayers, if they can meet the same standards, maybe to a different body, if they can prove they can do that, I'm not opposed to them. But our current charter schools aren't doing that. The past ones haven't been doing that. It's our tax dollars. So I'm opposed to opening any more until we get a level playing field.
So Diana Borisov, before she was let go as superintendent, made a simple statement about charter schools. She said, let's just have a moratorium on opening any new ones. We're in the situation right now where we have a lot of students in charter schools who have already been in a charter school that's open and closed, and a public school and back to a charter school. So in order to create some stability, I would agree with that statement. Let's at least have a moratorium, which is not what the mayor is before we race down the road of opening new charters?
Charter schools. Well, I'm probably the only one in this panel that is actually engaged in the charter school system. And I know the dangers of the management firms, and I think someone spoke about the management firms opening up charter schools. And I know you're a bit new, but that's not the real formula for charter schools as it was set out. That formula had to do with people like yourselves opening up a school with an independent board. Unfortunately, there has not been enough money for anything, including public schools. And many times that's how the management company comes in and dishonestly takes over. The management company I'm referring to has to do with Imagine. Imagine assassinated Thurgood Marshall. That was my school. Imagine assassinated Ethel Hesman-Lyle. And they went on to wreak havoc on the education system in this town. And I was one of the point men out here begging the St. Louis Public Schools to pay attention to me, begging the Attorney General, begging the DESE, and no one would listen until Imagine had its way with the St. Louis, with the children in St. Louis. And one must wonder, and you ask yourself a question, why did charter schools take foot, or grab, or get a foothold or a handhold in this city? And you ask yourself that question because we had failed our children in the public school system. And I do believe, honestly believe, that political intervention helped kill the St. Louis public school system. And I'm almost thinking, just like Andrew said, we're going to have to take this thing and reformulate this education where our children can learn. I look back and I gave an example at a forum about the St. Louis public schools, and you can make your own opinion. And if you can imagine a ship on the rocks that's sinking, taking water in high seas in a storm with sharks in the water, those sharks being crime and other things that devour children. Each one of you have the right to take your child and put him or her in the best educational environment that you can. I am a public school supporter. I believe in the public schools. But we're going to have to get some of these vultures out of our hair before we can make this thing work. And the St. Louis public schools can work. And I believe that there's enough money for each one of our children. We got to respect the budget.
I am a strong advocate for the St. Louis Public Schools. Our children's futures cannot afford to be played with. They're not guinea pigs. Over any certain amount of time can their lives be played with. Our charter schools are brought in to privatize education in the St. Louis area, and we need to take all the resources we put out into the charter schools and put them into the St. Louis Public Schools. There's no way you can convince me that taking money and putting it into a charter school, and for the fact that you can't get your own house straight, you can go try to take care of somebody else's. I mean, if you can't get the St. Louis Public Schools straight, why run to go try to build up another place and you still have issues in the same place? Take care of all of your issues, focus on the students in the St. Louis Public Schools to make sure that they succeed, and then maybe you can begin to venture out. But until then, we cannot afford it, our students cannot afford it, and St. Louis cannot afford it. People don't want to live in the city. They want to move out to the county because they feel like their voices aren't being heard. The charter schools don't have to answer to anybody. They don't even have an elected board to where the people would have a voice on what's going on in those schools. The teachers don't have to be qualified. Ms. Gorst, you're right, they're not any better than the St. Louis Public Schools. And so since they don't have anybody to be held accountable to, when those kids go off to college, what are those schools supposed to, what type of standards are they supposed to look at? I'm a graduate of the St. Louis Public Schools. We need to continue to invest in our education here. And like I said, maybe at another time, but I'm a strong advocate, and I will always be for the students of the St. Louis Public Schools.
Ready for another question? Oh, this is, who should decide what books and magazines are available to children in public school libraries? I think this is a censorship question. I'm sorry.
parents, teachers, and administrators, not the government. I don't
If
even
I could follow up here, so if a parent objects to a particular book in the school library,
I've seen that happen. Sometimes the parent wins, sometimes the teacher wins. I've objected to some of the books my kids had, but it's a negotiation. Sometimes you lose as a parent. But I think it's got to be negotiated, but it shouldn't be the government. I don't believe in censorship, but then again, I don't think a third grader should be reading about sex acts either. There should be some board, I would say teachers and administrators possibly, who help assess that. Censorship, I don't like. It's a tough question. That's a good question.
well, you would not go with the librarians in schools, decision on what was age appropriate for students.
If the librarian's properly educated, I certainly would trust her more than some other people.
Let's go on with the rest of the
Yeah.
everybody else. Who decides?
Well, I think that question is of a particular type. I mean, that's not the only issue. There are all sorts of issues in schools about what's appropriate. Happens on a day-to-day basis, right? So ideally, if you have a good administration of the school, a good librarian, good principal, teachers, those decisions are made at the school level. That's where they should be made. The leadership in the schools are entrusted with making those decisions, working with parents. I think the stuff you see in the news when it makes its way up the chain is probably not great, and some things are kind of broken down. The Board of Education, for example, is not its role is not to micromanage what goes on in individual schools. So anytime that is happening, I think it's a sign that we haven't really invested enough time working with principals and teachers and librarians to make sure that they can make those decisions at the school level. So that's a general answer to the question.
Marie, we have to have a librarian in the school for that to be an issue, for that to be an answer.
Yeah. More basic.
Somehow or another, the word community standards comes to my mind. Standards. And I think a collaboration with community standards and curriculum. I think that the library should reflect the curriculum pursuits. And we see now the problem that we're having. It's hard to get parents even to come to board meetings. So if you think you're going to get a bunch of parents to come in and decide what kind of books you got, it's going to be a rough road. But I think all of that's engaged in forming a collaborative effort with parents. And I think a lot of times we can do better by not just having the school functions and the board meetings in the school. Let's go into the community. Let's go into a community center on Kings Highway of Wolves and have the school meeting. Let's not be so distant. I think we're real distant. We're real distant right now. And I think we have to form these parental collaboratives in order to make these issues work. And I respect what Andrew said, because Andrew spent a lot of time in this classroom. And you got to listen to these teachers. It's like an airline pilot. You know, I don't want a janitor telling me how to fly this plane. I want the pilot to tell me.
I'm going to agree with collaborating with the teachers, but also looking at what it is the students would like in the curriculum. We need to keep their attention as well, as well as having them meet the standards of what it is we need them to meet for the St. Louis Public Schools. I think that collaborating with the people, the teachers, everybody in the community that school encapsulates is very important. I think that what's key and what's great about having younger people run on the St. Louis Public School Board is that we have the energy and the wits. And not to take anything away, but I just think that the technologies in which we use, and I definitely do believe in the grassroots approach, is still, I'm going to harp on that again, social media. So maybe taking some type of survey or some type of poll that would get results back faster in order to get results back from those who are interested and get more people interested in what's going on in the St. Louis Public
this is solely based on the curriculum at hand. I think the best option would be have the educators decide on what would be best in the libraries. The educators and certainly the community also. That's about what I have to say.
Describe your view on the roles of the school board and the superintendent. I think this would be the relationship between the superintendent and the board. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's a good question. So I'll talk about what we have right now and what will happen when the elected board is back in control. A board is supposed to provide vision and oversight. The board hires the superintendent that the board feels will be able to run the district and carry out that mandate. The board is not supposed to be doing day-to-day micromanaging of what the superintendent is doing. Now, what we have right now with the SAB, it's not really a board functioning the way an elected board functions. It's really a management team. They're actually working with the superintendent, running the schools on a day-to-day basis. That, by law, is not the way an elected board functions. And I think that's really important. The elected board needs to be clear among itself what the vision is for the district. It then needs to hire somebody that it has faith in who can carry out that vision and let that person serve as superintendent. Because you end up with a lot of problems in a district when you start having rancor between the board and the superintendent because there isn't that confidence and that trust. So there's going to be a lot of work to do because we've kind of undone the sense of what a board should be during these years with the SAB, because the SAB is not really functioning the way a board is intended to function.
I'll make my answer brief. The elected school board has one employee, and that's the superintendent.
The school board is a group of individuals that are there to help influence educational policy in the best interest of the students, and the superintendent is there to implement that. Essentially, I was just at a meeting in regards to the teachers' pension, and I addressed Rick Sullivan about his relationship with the board, and I definitely think that everything's broken at this time. But teachers were asking him about whose decision is this? How will you help us with COLA? And basically, he was just saying, well, I'm just one of 11 votes, and you guys have to take that over to the school board, and that the school board they'll start hosting maybe more forums like this. And when I stood up and asked him in regards to those teachers, was that what is your relationship with the St. Louis Public School Board? Since you're counting all these votes, but yet they really still right now don't even have a voice. So how did you dare say that? And so I was like, how often do you guys speak? And so I really didn't get anything from him. But the point was that he knows now that he has people that are interested, and I'm going to hold him accountable. It's not going to be any more, oh, he didn't answer to this, and we have to put a sunshine law. I'm going to let the people know. Just like when they just made it, and I think that the growth of the St. Louis Public School Board members, even though I'm not on there now, the issue of Cleveland closing, I put that on my Facebook status. I got 1 million likes, and you know what? I got 1 million people in my inbox saying that I want to help, I want to be a part of this. And guess what? Those students, they came out and let them know the message is now that he had a change of heart, and now they're going to keep Cleveland open. So you always have the power in your hands, but at the same time, it's about holding those people accountable in those positions that you elect to them. And even though he wasn't elected to it, it's your duty to make sure that the people know who they are and really, show them exactly who this person is so that we can get these people out of place. Thank you.
The board's responsibility is for setting strong policy for the district and insisting all decisions be made in the best interest of the children. And then ultimately, I think that's what the superintendent needs to respond to, is what the board decides. Unfortunately, right now, the elected board really doesn't have that much power. The
similar to Bill's and Andrew's. The elected board, or the board that's in control, hires the superintendent. I think it should be a collaborative effort to carry out their policies. But the superintendent has to run the day-to-day. He's the feet on the ground. We're kind of the overseers and hopefully supporters of what he's doing. If he's doing what we're asking, we should be in there supporting it 100%. Hopefully, we eventually get back to where the elected board and the superintendent can work together.
Name one specific thing the district has done well over the past 5 years, and who gets credit for it?
I think the only thing that I could give the SAB board credit for is distancing the community from the St. Louis public schools. And I give all the credit to our politicians who's got these people in place that shouldn't be there.
I'm going to agree. I give credit to the SAB to dismantling our district and lowering enrollment rates in our St. Louis public schools.
I also agree. I believe in strong neighborhood schools, and unfortunately, SAB has destroyed that.
I think the question asks for a positive. The only positive I've seen is they've allowed us to have a superintendent that's been here more than a year, year and a half. He's been here several years. He's been able to continue with some of his policies and programs, and we may be seeing some positive results from it. It's the only positive thing I've really seen.
Wow. Well, I mean, seriously, one of the things that's happened with the creation of so many charter schools and closing of schools is that the district is grappling with all this infrastructure and how to maintain things. I suppose there are business people on the SAB who are at least able to look at those issues. I would agree with the rest of my friends here at the table, though, and say that the issues that they've created, they brought on themselves. So I don't know. Is that a positive? Maybe they can balance the books as they're dismantling the district.
Okay, in this scenario, you've been elected. You're a member of the school board, and the school board is in control. Okay, we're back to running our own school board. A parent comes to you with a maintenance problem at a school. What do you do? What is your role in resolving the matter?
A parent came to me with a maintenance problem in the school. The first thing to do is to find out what school it's at, find out the issue behind it, and what can we do in order to solve the issue. Whether it's staffing-wise or making sure that we contact the appropriate officials so that we can get it handled and taken care of in a timely, efficient manner.
A parent came up to me with a problem. I think the main focus would be dealing with that in the most professional way possible and in a timely manner as well.
I'd first listen to the parent and hear the problem. Then I'd inquire if they follow the channels, like going to their principal. If the principal's been informed and has done little or nothing, I would take it to the next level, which is going over to the district, to the offices, and finding the facilities person and seeing if it's on the list for repair. If it's serious, you've got to support the parent. And you've got to keep the children safe. I don't know if this maintenance issue is a minor one toilet's not working, or the building's about to fall down and the classroom's hat. The more serious it is, the more rapidly I try and get it resolved. But also support the parent, listen to them, and then take it up the chain of command.
So inevitably, people in the district are going to talk to somebody that they feel comfortable talking to. So if you find yourself on the board, there might be people who know you and are going to come to you with a question. So that this would be an example. But as Kathy's saying, I think, just as we heard the other night at the forum, my role as a board member would be to help that parent find the things are really, not being attended to. But I think the board can best support principals and the superintendent by, helping that person find the right person to talk to and get the problem taken care of. Otherwise, all the people that, Bill says the board hires one person, that's true, and then that person hires a lot of other people. You don't want to undermine all those employees by having them feel that the board members are swooping around, micromanaging their day-to-day operations.
I would do something. I heard Ms. Jones talk about the older people here not using social media. I'm on Facebook. I got an email account. I got 3 or 4 laptops around the house. I'd probably go to one of the laptops and I'd email the superintendent's secretary and say, we got a problem at such and such school. Give me an update when it's taken care of. And I would use social media.
Okay, somewhat of a follow-up actually. Should we elect the school board by districts instead of at large, citywide?
Huh?
Yeah. What happens in some cities?
Should we elect the school board by districts instead of at large, citywide? In other words, instead of a ward, a district, a particular geographic area.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I would have to say that I see an advantage to both, but I really feel like you could just do a citywide, just a district school board. I feel like that's a really good question.
I was just, the issue being we elect legislators and aldermen by districts or wards or some geographic. I think it goes to the issue of the hands-on versus the policymaker.
Yeah, you can definitely see both sides, but I feel like electing part of doing almost I think the way it's done right now, I think still works out fine, I suppose.
Never even thought of it from that perspective. Wow. However, if we were a more neighborhood-based district, where we were really focused on neighborhood schools and we weren't busing about half of our children, I think there's actually some sense in that. You know your neighborhood, you know your community, your little area. And right now, most of the children aren't attending schools right in their neighborhoods. They're being bused 1 mile, 2 miles, 5 miles, or further, because they're attending schools of choice or their local school is closed. If they were in their community, I see the value, but right now, for what we've got, what we have, I'd keep it, but it would be open to considering alternatives.
I think I would agree with both those comments. Other cities do have the city split up with school board members elected from a particular area. Kathy's point is a good one. Right now we have students who are, attend part of that conversation.
I would maintain citywide election and hopefully avoid a political